Thank you for attending today's Reference Solutions and Overview. My name is Lydia Wilms, and I'm a librarian at Carrollton Public Library, and I'm joined by Diana Slavinsky, our Community Engagement Librarian, who'll be providing tech support, and you may see her in our chat. Today's webinar is an overview of our Reference Solutions database, formerly Reference USA. It's a highly customizable database tool with a wealth of information. It's accessible remotely with a library card in good standing, or it's also accessible at both Carrollton Public Libraries on our public computers. You can bring in an ID to get a guest pass or come in to ask about a library card. This session will be recorded and a link will be sent to registrants. It will also be available soon to view on demand from our library webpage for those who aren't able to attend today. I'd like to welcome our presenter for today's Reference Solutions Overview webinar. Bill Carlson is the Data Axle Reference Solutions Customer Success Manager. But first, Diana will guide us in the chat features. Diana?
Hello. So I did go ahead and put a couple questions in the chat box for you. If you don't already have your chat open, if you navigate towards the bottom, you'll see a little bubble and maybe you have a couple numbers lit up. If you click that, it should go ahead and open it up on your screen. Sometimes it does something funky where it'll put a page maybe right in view of what you're looking at, maybe our presentation. If you go up to the top and press view options, you should be able to exit full screen, in which case then you can also have the chat on the right-hand side, and that way it won't be hopefully in your way. And if you have any other questions, go ahead and put them in the chat and I'll try to assist you remotely.
Thank you, Diana. So Bill, if you would please get us started in this wonderful tool.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning. My name is Bill Carlson. I'm with Reference Solutions. We're located in Omaha, Nebraska. In fact, gosh, we've been in business now since 1972. And the database Reference Solutions has been available in libraries since 1994. The information contained within the database is compiled here in Omaha. We have roughly 1,100 employees, and some of those folks, about 350 of them, are responsible for the compiling of our U.S. business database. Certainly, as it notes here on the screen, there are some 62 million businesses and some 309 million consumers across our databases. So we'll certainly give you a great overview of how to use the database and some of the tools that would be available to you. Might as well start with Reference Solutions. You may have known us as Reference USA. We went through a rebranding, I want to say it was September of last year. The database remains the same great database that everyone saw when they used it as Reference USA. We just changed a few things on this primary page. Certainly giving you the ability to get to any of our webinars. We have our Learning Center with some information that you might want to be able to access there. I'll go ahead and open that up. It's going to bring us up to this new page. And once here, you'll notice we have our contact information here in several places. So you can certainly reach out to the library, or you can certainly feel free to reach out to us and we would help you with the gathering of information that you may need. I do like to point out under this marketing and training materials information, we do have these database overviews. And as you'll note here, we have one for all of our modules. We also have a business and a consumer data dictionary. So if you had a question about a specific data element, you could probably find that answer in either of these. Then we also have overviews. We have one for all the database, certainly the consumer databases. So certainly take advantage of that information, always available to you. You could print that off, you could have it open on another tab, just depends on what you might want to do. And I also like to point out we have this app. So if you would prefer to be able to use an app, certainly we make that available. In that app, we would have the U.S. Business Database and the U.S. Consumer Lifestyles Database. So those 2 modules out of the 9 that are available through your library. And last but not least, we also give you the ability to create a personal account. We were told by our library partners that not in every situation did patrons want to necessarily be able to download information, which you can certainly do, but in some cases they would rather simply save the search and come back to it at a later point in time. So certainly you can do that with the personal accounts. Once you've registered, you can log in and you can save your searches from any of these 9 modules, except for the U.S. jobs and internships. With this module, you can email yourself results, but you can't save them in that personal account. And I do like to mention, in some cases, patrons have thought that perhaps this would be a shortcut that they could take to get to the database. It's not. It's an additional step to get into those saved accounts. So you would still log in through the library's access and then come in and get to your personalized accounts. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and open up the U.S. Business Database. The nice thing about all of these modules is they all search the same way. Obviously, it's different criteria that you would be using to produce the search, but the processes and the tools that I'll show you are pretty much available in each and every one of these modules. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the update schedule to these various modules. So our U.S. business information, which certainly gets the lion's share of attention, that database is updated each and every week, Thursday into Friday morning. We're pushing out all of those updates that those call researchers have done with those businesses across our universe. So we're pushing that information out 52 times a year, once a week, in other words. Whereas our Canadian information, this is updated once a month. Our jobs and internships, this is a relationship that we have with Indeed.com. This is being updated daily. And the beauty about being able to use that particular tool is, unlike going directly to Indeed.com, you can come into our site and be able to get not only those Indeed job opportunities listings, but you can also learn about the company that's doing the hiring, because we do make a match between those job listings and those business records. So this is once a day, whereas our U.S. business data, new business database, these Secretary of State's filings are being updated weekly. It's kind of a holding area for us to be able to get this new business verified and then give it a full record. We will archive them for a year in here, though. So know that you may see duplicates, right? A complete record here versus that more limited information that you can find in the U.S. business filings. Our U.S. healthcare information updated monthly, as is the standard white pages, the consumer lifestyles, and the Canadian white pages. Those are all monthly. The U.S. new movers, new homeowners, great information here. So we're getting this information about people who've moved through our relationship. We have a license agreement with the USPS National Change of Address. So we're getting that information and making and updating that every week in here. That's also how we, in fact, learn about businesses, because when we're making our annual verification phone calls, we don't ask those businesses, by the way, do you plan on moving this year? So we'll learn about those new moves even for businesses and update that accordingly in our weekly updates. So let me go ahead and launch the U.S. Business Database. Whenever I launch any of the modules, I'll always come to this quick search page first. In this case, I could certainly look up a company by name. Maybe there's one company that I need some information on. I could certainly look up that one company, including the city and state that they're in, and be able to look at that one record. I could perhaps look for an executive. Maybe I had a business relationship with an executive, and I've learned that that executive has left that company and gone somewhere else, but I'm not certain where. I could try that first name, last name search. Hopefully you can narrow it down to city and state and then be able to produce that information. Certainly looking at all businesses in any given city and state. And when we do that from this quick search page, it's only going to show me those verified records. We have three forms of records. We have our verified, our unverified. So those could have been business records that were verified at one point in time. And then when we went to do our annual callback, we weren't able to get them. We don't stop after one attempt, of course. We will continue to attempt to reach them for a total of 12 times throughout the course of 2 years. And if we're not able to get that business verified, we haven't found any information about that business having closed, then at that point in time, we move them from verified into unverified. And then, of course, we have closed. But whenever I view my results from here, I'm only going to see those verified records. In fact, let's do this. Let's look at your community and be able, I'll show you how many of these verified records we have across Carrollton. I'm going to view my results. So I have 7,016 records that are verified. The tool I want to show you here that will help make sense of the types of businesses that there are across the community is this charts function. I'm going to select it. It will immediately bring me to this report page that's going to show me the top 7 types of businesses across your community. So in this top spot are physicians and surgeons at 294. And this is usually the case in any city of size, that physicians and surgeons are going to be kind of in this top spot simply because they're all 1099 guys and gals. So that's why there are so many of them. In this case, it's followed closely by restaurants, then dentists, insurance, attorneys, nurse practitioners, and churches are in 7th position here. If you're not familiar with SIC code, that's the Standard Industrial Classification Code. It's a coding system that technically has been retired by Uncle Sam, but we've kept it going. We've kept it alive. We've actually made it more granular than it ever was under the use by the federal government. Notice if I continue to scroll down, I give you a full report for those 7,000 businesses. It's a 63-page report that lists that primary SIC code they're under, that definition for them, and then the number of records that apply. So if I wanted to get into this group of beauty salons, because maybe I have a product that I want to be able to sell to them, I could hyperlink by clicking on that number right to that group of results, and there they are. Notice it's about 4 pages in length. We get 25 records per page. So you can always get to that kind of information from this report. So notice I could scroll through. Maybe I want to get to some other pages here. I can scroll through. I could type in the page that I wanted and hit enter. Just depends on what I want to be able to do. And I can also switch this up if I wanted to look at it from a sales volume standpoint or from an employment standpoint. Let me click on that employment size and let's take a look at your community. So these are the top listings. Notice 1 to 4 is about 50%. So all of your businesses across your community, about 50% of them employ 1 to 4 employees, followed by 5 to 9, 10 to 19. You get the idea. So you can always get to this information. You can also print this off, or you can make it part of a PowerPoint presentation. I've had people that I've helped create these kinds of reports. Granted, we're looking at your entire community, but some people want to be able to look at these kinds of reports based on just certain types of businesses. and they want to be able to get to that kind of information as it relates to employment size or sales volumes, because they intend on reporting that somewhere. Maybe to a boss, maybe to a lender, if they're open, if they have a business that they're either expanding, or perhaps they have a brand new business that they're launching. I got to all that information by simply putting in the city and state. I have many more filters under the advanced search. And by the way, additional filters goes to the same place, advanced search. Let me open that page up. And notice on this left-hand column, I have many more options available to me on this left-hand column. Let me explain some of these. For example, under quick search, we saw that we had where we could look up one company at a time. If I needed to look up multiple companies by name at a time, I could certainly do that. Maybe I want to look up IBM. I could add that to my list. Maybe I want to add Delta to that. I could add that to my list. I can add as many companies by name and then simply select the geography that I need and be able to produce those results. Otherwise, we will always give you the name of the company. We'll always give you this executive information where we can get that as well. That's another one of those questions that we ask in our verification phone call. Can you tell me who that owner or manager is of that business? Perhaps your need would require you to only work with records with an owner present. If that were the case, you could certainly do that and drive in just those records with an owner. Or perhaps you'd accept a manager if there weren't an owner available. You could certainly try it that way. You may get some of the records with both, but you'll for sure get one or the other. So know you can use this executive information as you need to. Most people simply do a keyword search, as it notes here, like with restaurants. I can look at any type of industry that I want to. I could look at dry cleaners. I could look at hotels. I could look at government offices. It doesn't matter. I can look at any for-profit or not-for-profit that we have available in the database. I'll show you this example in a moment. I would point out the major industry group, and that's just the SIC codes. As it notes here, you can also search by the primary. So when we say by the primary, think about Walmart, for example. Their primary line of business is a grocer, but they also have all those other lines of business that happen under that umbrella, right? They have their pharmacy, they have their garden center, they have their automotive. So if you need to get to primary and forego all those other forms of business that those businesses may be in, you could tell the system, I want to see just those primary lines of businesses that those businesses are in. Let's look at construction. So when Uncle Sam was using these SIC codes, they always started off with a 2-digit number. And then we can get a definition greater than just construction if we click on this plus symbol. It will then show each of those codes, 15, 16, and 17, and their respective definitions. And then you simply follow the path. If you're interested in general contractors, you click on that plus symbol and it will drive down to this 4-digit number. So this was as granular as it was when Uncle Sam was using or having businesses and other government agencies use the SIC codes. We actually added 2 more digits to make it a 6-digit number, and it gets this granular. So just depends on what you need to be able to do. If you wanted to get to those businesses that do fire damage restoration, and that's their primary line of business, you can select that and then simply scroll to the bottom and say, and I want to make certain that that's their primary line of business. You know, any general contractor could say, yeah, I can do this kind of work for you. But if you want those people that that's what they do day in and day out, then you could drive it in that specifically by choosing that as their primary SIC code. So know that you have that kind of stair-step ability to get into the type of data that is most important to you. I'll give you some examples of that here in a second. Geography kind of speaks for itself. I will show you this map-based search tool. Phone speaks for itself. Number of employees. Again, this is another one of those questions that we're asking when we're making those verification phone calls. How many employees do you have? About 72% of the businesses will give us an actual number. It's higher in some particular types of businesses than others, but it's about 72%, and we'll capture that and make that available on those records. If in fact you don't see an actual number, but rather a range, we applied that range because they did not respond to that question. Maybe when we called, they said, you know what, we're doing some hiring. I'm not certain what our current number is. If they're not certain, we're not going to just put anything out there. What we'll do is we'll look at their peers in the area based on that SIC code, and we'll apply a range. So you see an exact number, you know that we got that in our phone call. You see a range, you know that we applied that because they couldn't respond to that question. And we learned a long time ago, you don't ask a private company how much money they're making and not have that phone call end, say, rather abruptly. So what we do is we have a team that puts together an algorithm that then produces that modeled number. So they're using information like the how long that business has been in business, number of employees, where they're physically in business at. You can imagine all the variables that go along with that. Everything from the payroll that they have to payroll taxes, of course, to benefits that they offer their employees, to the cost to do business in that community, everything from leasing to power and lights. So we take all of that into account, along with some information we get through the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, in order to produce that modeled number. Now, if it's a publicly traded company, of course, we're getting that sales information from their 10K report, but if it's private, that's always modeled. And the same is true with the business expenditures. That too is modeled based on that algorithm. So you have a variety of ways under ownership to look at businesses. If you wanted to look at or exclude home-based businesses, you have that option as well. So if you were doing a general search, let's say in a zip code, you could in fact end up with home-based businesses in your records. If you did not want to see them, you could exclude them, or perhaps that's what you wanted to see. You could certainly do it that way as well. The financial data will always give you that information where we have that. We have some options here under special selects. I like to point out years in the database. If you're looking for those businesses that may be newer in your community, great way to be able to use this tool. Maybe you want to look at the last couple of years at businesses in total or by certain types of businesses in your community. You could certainly do that and choose that 1 or 2 years to produce those records. Or perhaps you need older businesses, businesses that have kind of withstood the test of time. Maybe your high water mark is 12 years or older. You could certainly drive in records that way. Just depends on what you might need to be able to do. So know that we have that or year established. This doesn't get as populated as what this would, because we know how long those businesses have certainly been in our database. Professionals, all or one. This was another tool that we added because of our library partners. They shared that in some cases, patrons wanted to be able to do a mailer in a certain area to advertise their business, for example. So they knew, or they told us, that in some cases when they were doing that, they were producing a lot of records for attorneys' offices or doctors' offices. As you might imagine, there are 3, 4, 5, 6, a dozen attorneys in an office, right? So if you would rather control that and not get multiple records at that same office, you have the ability to change this from all professionals to one. And then what we'll do is we'll provide you that record of the individual that we know of at that location that is a primary. So know that you have the ability to control what you're seeing for records from that standpoint. Great way to be able to do that if you wanted to produce a mailer, for example. And then we give you a variety of ways to exclude information. When we were looking at that chart function of your entire community, if we compared that to my community, in the 7th position would have been automated teller machines. So we have those records. We have records for kiosks like the red box kiosks that are often found at Walgreens locations. So if I wanted to be able to exclude any of those types of things, I could choose this keyword. Maybe it's ATMs that I want to be able to exclude. I could put in ATM and search for that, and it will then produce that SIC code along with the description for ATM, and then I can click on it. As it notes here, there's my automated teller machines. I can click on that, add that to my selected field here, and be able to then omit those automated tellers from the records that I'm about to produce. So it just depends on what you need to be able to do. And you could omit any kind of business. Maybe you don't want bars included in your records in an area. You could exclude that. It just depends on what is important in your search. And notice you have a variety of ways. Maybe we were going to look at the entire county and you wanted to omit one city in your county. You could certainly do that as well, and then obviously produce fewer results with that city being omitted. So it just depends on the information that you would need to be able to get at or omit, including previously saved searches. Maybe you want to omit those. Just depends on what's important for you. I'm going to give you an example here. We'll just do a keyword search and be able to drive in those results. And we'll just do restaurants because there are always so many of those. So I'll select restaurants. This would be for all types of restaurants, fine dining as fast food as well. So there's my all-inclusive for restaurants here. I'm going to select that. And I can add other, if I wanted to add, maybe I wanted to add hotels. I can add that as well. I get to be the driver here. This can look any way I need it to look. I'll just go with restaurants at this point. And I do like to mention here, notice this is a 6-digit code. And in some cases, it's a 7 or a 9-digit code. Let me show you what I'm referring to. For example, if I wanted to get to steakhouses or French restaurants or German restaurants, notice it's now a 7-digit code. Or once we reach 9, we switch to alpha. So know that it does get that kind of granular. And also, if you needed certain types of restaurants by chain name, you could get to those as well. That's a 9-digit now that we've made that so that you can get that kind of granularity if need be. But I'm just going to look at all restaurants and we're going to select, let's select your city here. And whenever using the city state selection, just type in the name of the city, hit go, and then it will pull up, as it notes here, all those Carrolltons. I'm going to come down here to Texas, So I have a total. If I want to get a sense of my number of records that I'm about to see, this is my total universe, almost 16 million. But as it relates to restaurants in your community, I have a total of 345. Now notice, if I choose, and I'm only looking at those that are verified records, I wouldn't necessarily discount the unverified. You may find some great opportunities in that information. We're just not aware of those businesses being in business at this point in time. But that doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to find some opportunities in there. But I'm just going to look at the verified businesses, and I'm searching all SIC codes. Watch what happens when I tell the system I want to look at those that's their primary line of business is that of a restaurant. Notice it drops it down to 286. So it got rid of businesses, for example, like a bowling alley that also has a little restaurant in there. If my needs were that of just getting records for those businesses that their primary line of business is a restaurant, I've just been able to do that. But I'm going to include all of them because I need some more numbers. I need plus 300 to show you these options here. I'm going to view my results. I can come right back here. If I would want to chart this information, I could certainly do so. It's going to give me now the zip codes across my city. So we're only looking at one SIC code. That's why you don't see SIC code listed here. So it's going to give me this zip code. So there's my 4 zip codes across the area. I could switch this up to sales volume or employment size. I helped a lady who was in Orlando, Florida. She worked for a company that she could sell a product to restaurants, but she couldn't sell to any of the larger restaurants. So she definitely wanted to see employment size because she couldn't do the McDonald's, the Arby's, those larger chains. She did want to get a sense of how many of those 345 in this case, what the numbers were related to those. So notice 5 to 9 is that largest group at over 56.5%, followed by 10 to 19, 20 to 49, 1 to 4 makes up about almost 9%. So it's a great way to be able to look at that audience by size. Maybe sales volume is important. I know that I've had a lot of lenders who've attended programs that we've done throughout the different public libraries that offer access to the reference solutions database. And they love this sales volume information. It gives them a sense of all of these various businesses, what kinds of revenues they're generating, right? So I can get that kind of insight here. Great way to be able to do that. So know that that's available. Again, you can make a PowerPoint or print this information off. I know that lady that I mentioned in Orlando, she was going to look at all of Orange County and be able to produce that information for her boss so that she could show her boss what she was going to be able to go after as it related to customers and their size. So great way to think about using the database. I also have the ability to put this information on what we refer to as a heat map. It's a density map, and it will show you that level of density based on the community that's been selected. So here, where you see these red spots, that's kind of more pink, right? There are lots of restaurants in those areas. Where it's more yellow, less, green even less, and of course no color, there are no restaurants there. And granted, we're looking at your entire community. We could break it up in a variety of ways, and I'll show you that with our map-based search tool. I can also scroll down and get those zip codes as well. So it just depends on what I need to be able to do. And if I've done, and it notes here, You can certainly adjust the map here. And if you zoom in and it's 300 or fewer records, this is what you'll see. I'll just take this plus symbol in the lower right-hand corner here and click on that and watch what it does. It pinpoints all those locations. It gives you this legend on the side here that I have access to all that information. And if I wanted to get to this Whataburger, I could do that. It just depends on what I need to be able to do. So know that you have that available to you. You could print that off or make it part of a PowerPoint presentation. You can also download this information. So if I wanted to be able to download this, it's as simple as I would always scroll down here and take a look and see how many downloads you can do at a time. So it's 400. You can do then let's see, that would be 16 pages at that point in time that you could grab to be able to download all that information. So to do that, you simply put a check mark in this empty box, grab that, advance to the next page, grab that, and just keep going until you've reached that maximum. And notice it's showing how many records I've gotten. There's 150. There's 175, there's 200. And maybe that's where I want to stop, is at this 200. If that's the case, I can select my download. I could also print this off if I'd like, but I can select my download. Comma delimited is definitely what you want to be able to use if in fact you're going to make mailing labels. This is mailing label friendly. It still drops it into a form of Excel. And if the name of that business, their address, phone number, and these additional elements would include information like that owner or manager, what their name and title is, the number of employees that they have, that sales volume, line of business, etc. All of that would be captured here in this Excel document and presented to you in this fashion. Now, mind you, all of my Excel pages are static. You can't add additional information to this. The only thing you can do is adjust the cell size. So if you intend on taking maybe 800 records out, what I would suggest, unless you don't mind saving multiple pages, what I would suggest is simply come up here with your mouse into the upper left-hand corner between cell 1 and A, click there, and then copy this information, drop it on your version. So you'd have to open up your Excel, drop it on your Excel, minimize that, then come back to my page here, and you can simply close it. It will always leave you on this instructional page, and then you just simply select back. The key is you want to remember what page you were last on, because you're going to start, in this case, on page 9. Now you've got to get rid of all these check marks first. Easiest way to do that, revise search, view your results, leaves you on page 1, all those check marks are gone, and then at this point in time, all you have to do is type in the number 9 there, hit enter, and you've got more to go. So you can certainly get more records out and then save them on your Excel document, which you can keep adding to and adding to as you need to. So know that at that point, you would just start selecting more pages, right? That it would be that simple. Let's do this. I'm going to revise this slightly to get rid of those check marks, and I'm going to view my results again. And I notice that you have Arby's here. Notice we have this corporate structure that notes here. If I want to get to Arby's corporate structure, I have 2 routes. I can select the up arrow, which will go to one record, and that would be the subsidiary for all the Arby's. If there weren't a subsidiary along the way, which in some cases there aren't, then it would take me to the ultimate parent. This option will show me their entire organizational flow. So let me click on that. And it will open up this new page. So Arby's is actually owned by this Rourke Capital Group out of Atlanta, Georgia, private equity firm out of Atlanta, Georgia. So I can quickly identify this PV. It's a private company. I have this legend that runs across the top here. If there were a subsidiary of a foreign parent, we would stop here in the US at that subsidiary. We don't go overseas or across lines. So we wouldn't go up to Canada or down to Mexico for that matter, if the parent were located in one of those countries. We stop here in the US. If you wanted to see these other subsidiaries, of which they have, look at this, almost 40,000 branches. Certainly a large group of records. I can get to that information and I can close this. It'll take me right there. I'm sure you recognize a lot of these companies by name. Annie Ann's, gosh, she's in every airport that I've ever been in and many malls. Baskin Robbins, Buffalo Wild Wings, Carl Jr.'s, etc. In fact, they just brought on Dunkin' Donuts, probably within the last 5 or 6 months. And if you wanted to be able to, maybe you wanted to look at this McAllister's, you can click on that subsidiary and it will open up that McAllister's. So a wealth of information really in the matter of a couple of clicks. So wherever you see that corporate tree information, if you need that, you have that access. You can download this, you can print it as well. I can always get back to my listings here. Let's open up this Arby's record because I want to show you where you can also retrieve this information from inside a record. And by the way, that's great for job seekers to be able to have this kind of insight in that record. So there's my corporate tree. And this is a typical look at any business record. So we're going to have this location information first here. In this case, I have their website, some social links that they use. There are those job listings. There's a few that are 10 days old. Here's one that's 5 days old, another that's 16 days old. I've got their industry profile. So there's that SIC code that brought in all these restaurants. I also have the business profile. So great information for people to be able to use to understand perhaps a little bit more about that business. And by the way, we won't necessarily have a business profile on every single type of business. Obviously, we'll have that on those larger companies, but Bob's Garage, who works on lawnmower engines down the street, we're not going to have probably a business profile on Bob's Garage. We have Google Maps embedded in each of the records so that you have that available to you. You can switch this up to satellite view, use that street view, just depends on what you might need. You could certainly print this off if that would be helpful for you. There's my business demographics. So when we updated them in March of this year, they told us they had 14 employees at this particular location. There's that parent company information. Of course, it's a private company, been in our database for about 27 years. Hours of operation. There's that management directory. So Carla is that site manager. Company news. We get this, could be multiple times throughout the day in terms of an update. It just depends on the sources that Bing would be getting this information through. You can see here's one that was done, gosh, yesterday. So you can see on the 8th, the 6th, the 5th, oh, several on the 5th. Notice if I keep going back in time, I can even get to older articles. Stock data, obviously this is a private company, so there's not going to be any stock data. But even if this were a public company, we wouldn't have the stock data on the branch. You'll see that on that subsidiary, and certainly then the overall for the corporate parent. There's my business expenditures, followed by some historical information, followed by some historical records. These aren't available through your subscription. Then I have some UCC filings. If the business is taking out any kind of loan, that would be captured there, that they put something up as collateral, maybe some machinery, etc., as collateral. I have the nearby businesses because we have that latitude and longitude embedded in the background. And then a list of competitors. So we won't put competitors on government agencies. We're not going to put competitors on nonprofits. But on retail businesses, we'll certainly have that list of competitors. And I can get, wherever you see a hyperlink, meaning this is underlined, I could get to this KFC. If I wanted to go into this record, I could click on that name and it'll take me to that KFC record. So no, I can get to that kind of information, and I can always get back. I can always get back to that previous record that I was on, and it will always collapse those. So I could expand that if I wanted to go into a different record. Just depends on what I need to be able to do. I can also quickly get back to the top here as it notes. And you can use these quick links. Perhaps when you came into a record, you wanted to see something specific right away. Maybe it were the business demographics. You could click on that and it would take you to that particular position right away. Just depends on what you need. So that's a typical record that you're going to find in the database. And I would mention, let's do this. Let's imagine for a moment that under these business demographics, you see that 14, and you actually, maybe you know Carla, and the two of you were having a conversation, and she mentioned that they had 18 employees. You could tell us about that, and this is true for any of our records. Simply go to the back to the top, and there's this data feedback button. You can click on that, and as it notes here, this is going to be sent to this group of researchers, and all you need to do is put a check mark next to the box or boxes for those items that need to be researched and updated. So if it were number of employees, you could put a check mark next to there, put in 18 here, fill out this information, submit this to us. We'll send you back an automatic response indicating that we received your query, and we'll send you the confirmation of that within 7 to 10 business days. So know that anything can be updated. Let's go back to our details, and I'm going to go back to my list of records. I want to be able to do another search, and I want to show you this map-based search tool. So I'm going to add some other criteria here. Let's say, show me businesses with web addresses, and let's go with number of employees. And I'll just grab some of those ranges. I'll grab 3 ranges there. And now, instead of looking at the city and state, I'm going to remove that. And I'm going to use this map-based search tool under geography and open that. This is different than the heat map. That was that density map. This map is going to allow me to navigate using certain tools that are available here. And let me introduce you to those tools. So once I have chosen where in the world I want to, I should say, where in the United States I want to begin, I can zoom to that area. So I could be putting in a physical address here along with my city and state. I could be putting in a zip code if I would like. I could be putting in a county, state. Just depends on where I want to zoom to. I have these various tools. I can draw my own shape. I can use a true radius. I have some predetermined boundaries like zip codes, for example. I could even create a drive route. So let's do this. I'll go ahead and we'll just go back into your community. Not TZGX, there it is. And go. And so here I am in Carrollton. I'm going to back out just a little bit so I can see a little bit more of the area. I'm going to select that one more time. There we go. Okay. So I have, as it notes here, I can draw a shape. With draw a shape and with the radius, the maximum distance is 150 miles. In most cases, people don't need to go quite that far. So with draw a shape, I click on that icon and then I decide where I want to begin. If I want to begin right in the middle of the lake, I can do that. I get to be the driver here. So this can start and end anywhere I need it to. I'll start here at this junction here in Louisville, and I'm just going to go over here to the corner of Plano, down across part of Richardson, and through Farmers Branch, and I'm going to double click it. So it's a single click to begin it and to change directions. So as you can see, I can do any shape I want here. If I wanted to do this shape, I could do it. Just depends on what I need. I'm going to double click here. And in that shape, there are 1,109 businesses that match my criteria. If that's all I need, I can say done and then view my results. All depends on what I need. I can also, maybe as I'm looking at this, I'm going, oh, I may not have wanted to go quite so far into Plano. I could select that draw shape again, and maybe I want to make this my cutoff. I could simply highlight this area, double click to finish that. So there are 240 results out of this 1,109 total. I can double click in this new shape and exclude those 240. And as you can see, I'm ready to give you those 875 records right now. All you have to do is say done and then view your results and you'd have them. I also, and I'll just delete these guys. I can always delete a mistake, right? In terms of a true radius, it's a matter of where do I want to begin? If I put in a physical address, let's pretend that this was the physical address that I put in. I can click. Oops, I did that a little wrong. There, I can click up. There it goes. I didn't highlight it. I can click, hold that, and drag it away. And as you can see, I'm already out over 5 miles. So if that's the area that I need, let me show you this. I'll go out a little further. I'll go up to 11 miles. So I have a bunch of results in there. And that's because I didn't add my web addresses and all of my employment sizes. Doggone it. I selected them. I have the ability, if I needed to, maybe I want to create a donut hole and I just want the records out here. Maybe I have a business that has a delivery service. Maybe I'm a automobile parts dealership or retailer, and I want to be able to expand my area of coverage. So these businesses that are out here wouldn't have known about my delivery service. I've been doing it in here for years, but these guys would not have known about it. I could double click in there, exclude that, say okay, and then I'll just get the records out here. And as you can see, I'm already ready to give you those 2010. Maybe I want to do some calling to these businesses that I'm reaching out to about my service. I could certainly do that. You get to be, it's your imagination, right? I also have the ability to drive in these boundary selects. So if I wanted to overlay the area zip codes, maybe I better get a little closer. I might find I've got too many. Oh, that's not a bad view of the zip codes in the area. So then, as it relates to the zip codes, I simply click in whichever zip codes I'm interested in. Maybe I want to look at all the records in here. I can get to that group of 59. Maybe this is another area that I want to look in. I can get to that group of 43. Maybe this is yet another number or another zip code that I want to look in. Again, I can get to that group of 57. And as you can see, I'm ready to give you those 159 records. So all you have to do is say done and view those results, and you'll have those. I can also, I'll return to my tools. I can also create a drive route. So again, with this starting address, it could be an actual business address or a home address, whatever address it needs to be. It could be a street corner, 9th and Main, somewhere USA, right? I get to be the one that sets this up based on what I need. I helped a gentleman in Wisconsin. He was looking for certain types of manufacturers that manufacture skid pallets, and he was looking between two communities because he knew that those businesses would be within a certain distance of the on-off ramps on the interstate. So what we did was we just put in those two cities. I'll just put in my community here of Omaha, Nebraska, and I'll go down to Lincoln, which is like 55 miles. So I can do this anywhere in the United States. And then it's the buffered distance. He wanted to be able to go out a total of 3 miles on either side of the roadway, so a total of 6, in order to find those manufacturers that manufacture or remanufacture skid pallets, because he was going to try and buy their extras. So it's just a matter of selecting. If it's 3 miles, I simply put in the number 3, and as you can see, it's green. It says it's valid over here. It's ready to go. Maybe what I want is 0.3, so 3 blocks either side. I could certainly do it that way as well. Then I create my route, and the system says, okay, here we are, Omaha, Nebraska, all the way down to Lincoln, Nebraska. I have 57 results that match my criteria along that route. So know that you can get to that kind of level of data, and then it's just a matter of saying, okay, I want to see those records now, and there they are. Perhaps I'm going to do a mailer. Perhaps I'm going to call some of these businesses, let them know about a product that I have that I'd like to be able to set up an appointment and demonstrate for them. Just depends on what I need. I have all of that insight here. So I could download that, I could print that, just depends on what I need. So that's it on the business database. Let's take a look at our U.S. new business. Remember, the new business is information that we're getting through the Secretary of State's office, through utility filings, those kinds of filings. We can open that up. Again, I'm going to always come to this quick search page. I would suggest jumping right over to the advanced search, because this is where it's going to allow me to do some more adjustments to the information that I'm about to see. So perhaps I want to be able to look at it from a time frame. Notice it will always default to the last 6 months. Could be as recent as last week or within the last year. Just depends on what you're looking at, right? Let's set this up for 3 months. And you could look at all businesses, or you could look at businesses in terms of maybe the filings, the type of filings that they've done. Is it a doing business as? Is it for a license? Is it a corporate location? Could be a branch as well. So you could do it that way. Maybe I want to look at businesses doing business as. And then it's just a matter of selecting whatever geography makes sense. Let's just do your community again. So we can do Carrollton and go. And then just scroll down to get Texas. There we are. So I have a total. number of businesses that are doing business as in the last 3 months of 56. Those are 56 doing business as filings. I can open those up. Here they are. I could chart them. Maybe I want to understand the types of businesses that they're filing. I could chart that real quick and get that kind of insight. So I've got a couple of beauty salons, tax return preparation and filing businesses. You get the idea. So I've got that information. I could change it up to that county that they're in, that zip code that they're in. So in that area, I've got Dallas, Denton, and Collin. So it just depends on how you want to look at this information. I could print this off. I could download this information. Let's go right in here. So I've got this location information again. They're a personal consultant, got a phone number with that. Doing business as, it's a new location. They say it's going to be commercial. Now we're going to verify all this information. They even had a number of employees. They didn't provide this information, so we're going to try and capture that along with some additional insights about their business. And we're able to typically turn these around within 30 to 60 days. Now, not every business that we learn about through the Secretary of State's office ends up being a business that we add to the database. Maybe we find out that they aren't even intending on opening their doors just yet. Maybe they say, you know, we plan on opening in 22. We're preparing now, getting everything together. We still have jobs. We're going to be going to this location. We intend on doing that in 22. Well, we're not going to put a business record out there that's not open yet. So our job will then be to contact them again next year, right? So know that we'll go ahead and capture those that are available and make that record for them. But if we learn that they're not going to be opening their business, we're not going to add that. So I can always get to that kind of insight, and it just depends on what I need. Maybe I want to see certain types of businesses. Again, I can drive in those kinds of records. It just depends on what I need to be able to do. Maybe I'm going to save these 56 because I plan on coming back to that at a later point in time. I could certainly do that. Just depends on what I need to be able to do. And you probably noticed in the U.S. business database, whenever we're in the U.S. business database, it did list that there are emails available. You'll never see that in the U.S. new business filings, but in the U.S. business, let's just do this real quick. And I'll just select, let's do those hotels. So we'll grab hotels, and here is my all-inclusive for hotels and motels. We'll do your city again. I do want to point this out because we get lots of these questions. I showed you where all of our contact information can be found. In fact, you can even find it on this page right down here at the bottom of the record. So I'm going to add hotels, and I did select your community. So I have a total of 10 there. Now notice it says 2 with email addresses, and it says more information. We don't have the email addresses available in the database. You can imagine with all of the libraries across the country that have access to our data, if we had all these email addresses out there that anybody could get access to, those email addresses would be sour in no time. So we do sell that information. And if you were interested in that kind of insight, you can always contact us. That's what you're going to be directed to do if you were ever interested in email addresses. And that would be true whether we were talking about businesses and or consumers. I'll close that up and we'll go right back here to Reference Solutions. That gets me back to my home page. We were just in the US businesses. Let me show you the consumer lifestyles information, and I'll end with the new movers, new homeowners. So with the US consumer lifestyles information, we're getting this from a variety of sources. Surveys that people have completed, magazine subscriptions people are having sent to their homes, memberships people have joined. I was not in this database when I first moved back into Omaha. I ended up buying my dog food at Petco and eventually signed up for a Petco Pals card, and that information was identified, and I was known as a dog lover. So lots of information gathered in lots of different ways and made available through the database. So just like all the other modules, whenever I open it up, I'm always going to come to this quick search page. Most people go right over to advanced search. Maybe I'm the local pizzeria down the street, and I would like to reach out to consumers because I'm reopening after this year-long pandemic, and I want to let people know that I'm just down the street from them. I could go to advanced search, and I could even, let's do this. I'm going to say, I'll look at your city. And go and Texas, and I'm going to change it up from all per household to one. I just want one record, one address, one name. And I'll even select lifestyles. And the reason I'm doing that is, notice we have a category for cooking and wine. So I know that those people, not that all the other people in my community wouldn't appreciate good food, but I also know that these people, it's something that they really enjoy, right? So we could look at general cooking or even gourmet food and wine. Well, you know what? I make a gourmet pizza. So I might want to select that entire universe and be able to look at that in my community. So if I look at the number of records, and notice we have this scoring system. That's what's so important about this. It's 0 through 9, but we will only show you records for people who score a 6 or higher. So they're active in their category. I have a total in this 6 to 9 range of 12,050 people, houses, apartments, condos that enjoy general cooking or gourmet food and wine. I can certainly continue to, if I want that entire audience, that's kind of a big audience, right? Perhaps I want to be able to use the map-based search tool in order to be able to produce these records. But first of all, I want to show you those records. So we have that individual's name, their address, city, state, zip, and in this case, some with phones, lots without, right? And in terms of phone numbers, I often get this question: how many of these phone numbers are in fact cell numbers? They might be a cell number. Somebody could have filled out a survey and included their cell phone number on that survey, but we don't know if it's a landline or a cell phone. We're not getting any information regarding cell phones from any of the vendors, right? The Verizons or the AT&Ts of the world. So could be cell phone numbers here. We're not certain. We don't classify them either way as land or cell phone numbers. Certainly back in the day when there were more landlines, of course, you would kind of expect it that it would just be a landline. But I can't say that some of these aren't in fact cell phones. Let's look at this record. So I've got that resident information, that address information. Now we're not call verifying this information with John. We're not calling up John and saying, John, are you married? But everything that we've seen is he's married, been in this home for about 34 years. There's the estimated household income and home value, which we're adjusting based on the census information that we're getting from this particular block group and that census tract that they're in. And then there are the lifestyle indicators. The only reason this record came in was because John or someone in the family is interested in general cooking, right? So that's why this record came in. We could go and do another search for example, say gardening. This record may not show up because they're not active enough in that category. It's something of interest. They're just not active enough in that category. I used to work in the state of Florida, and I received a phone call one day from one of my librarians at a library there, and she said, "Bill, there's a problem with my mother-in-law's record. It shows here that she has interest in entertainment and technology, and I can tell you that there's nothing further from the truth. She has no interest in that." And I knew this librarian for quite some number of years, and I said, "So tell me, she's never bought any kind of electronic stuff for your grandchildren or her other grandchildren?" And she said, "I understand now." So just because something is listed doesn't mean that they're active enough to show up in a search for that particular category. Just understand that. I can always get back to my results. And notice, no matter what, whenever you come in to any of our consumer information, so the standard white pages, certainly the consumer lifestyles, our new movers, new homeowners, it always will give you this message about telephone numbers displayed may be on the do not call list and should not be used for phone solicitation. Ultimately, you're responsible for all the compliance as it relates to federal, state, and local laws. With that said, we do, and you are able to contact us. I showed you that our phone information and email address information is right down here at the bottom of the page. You may contact us, and if you would like a clean list that you could call, we would run a list based on whatever criteria was important to you. We would run a list through the do not call registry and be able to sell you that list. That is a purchase. So know that if that were something you wanted to be able to make phone calls, you could purchase from us. You could also take and download this list and send it through to the do not call registry folks. They'll also charge you to update that and get you those names that you could in fact call. So know there's a couple of options there for you. I can chart this information if I wanted to. I could put that on the heat map. Again, just depends on what I need to be able to do. I'm going to revise this search slightly. I helped a lady do this very search just not too long ago, and she was down in Scottsdale, and she has a boarding kennel. She wanted to be able to do this. She wanted to reach out to dog lovers in a radius around her home. So in the map tool, we put in her physical address, Scottsdale, Arizona, and then look for dog lovers, right? So you could certainly do that. Let's do that in your community. We'll just leave that at 1 per. So I have a total number of dog lovers. And remember, these are those folks that are scoring in that 6 to 9. So they have to be active in that category. So I have 1,700 across the city that I know of that would fall into that 6 to 9. Certainly that doesn't represent the entire population of those dog lovers. I know my niece has a couple of those, and she's not in that list. So I can view those results, or I can add additional filters. What she wanted to be able to do is she wanted to be able to look at home income, because she didn't want to market to people that may not be able to afford her services for her boarding kennel. But she's getting ready because she knows that there are, number one, a lot of people that during this pandemic have purchased dogs, and that a lot of those people are going to be returning to the workplace, and a certain percentage of them are going to return to traveling, and those that travel may need her services, right? So she wanted to be able to look at that. So you could just, let's say that 80,000 were the point where you wanted to begin. And as you can see, I can grab, I'll go up to 250. So what is that going to do to my total number of records? So it dropped it down to 1,100. She really wanted to get into that 500 range, and we were able to do that in the map-based search tool. But I just want to show you how that affects that number of records that you ultimately be getting at. You could also just put in a zip code. Maybe I want to put in the zip code where my business is at, and then get all of those dog lovers in that particular area. Again, depends on what I need, right? I have that radius capability here as well, or I can do it from the map-based search tool. Know that all of those tools apply. I do want to show you if I add criteria. So now here's my 1,140, right? There they are at 1,140, just like I showed you before. Got that same information, that residential information, etc., right? So notice this is the extent that the record goes to. Now I'm going to throw in some other criteria. So I'm going to go back to my list. I'm going to revise this, and I'm going to throw in age, marital status, and children for the heck of it. So let's grab some of these age ranges. Let's grab married and presence of children. So I have 81 records now by adding these age ranges, the marital status, and the presence of children. And notice, I no longer see actual records. Everything, and I'll go back to this real quick, everything selected from Consumer Snapshot, which is this entire section, all the way down here to Veteran Present. This entire section is considered sensitive data. So no longer do we give you records at that point in time. The closest you can get, and I'll go back to these results, is putting it on a chart, a matrix, or a table. And let's say that I want to look at home income by age, and we know that they have children present. We know that they're married because that's what we selected, right? So I can click on the zip code, the area code, or the 3-digit zip. I'll do the 5-digit. There's my age ranges, my household income, my age ranges, the zip codes for those records, and how many records apply based on age and zip code and household income. So that's as close as I get. And I like to mention this because I do get those questions from patrons who have been using the tool, and they go to select information from that Consumer Snapshot section, and they don't end up with any records, and they're calling me and they're saying, Bill, something's broke. It's not broke. That's the way it's set up. So I have that ability as well with the database. So know that that's something that you can do. And last but not least, I do want to show you our new movers, new homeowners information. So we're obtaining this information from our license with the USPS National Change of Address. And you, as a user of this information, maybe again, I've got that pizzeria down the street, and I want to identify those people that are new to my community to let them know, hey, come and join me at a 10% discount on your first purchase, yada, yada, yada. I can go right into that database. And again, I'm always going to come to this quick search page, but I can go right into advanced search. Now I have that map-based search tool that's available in here too. So I could put in my pizzeria's address and then be able to do a radius around that area if I'd like. I have some residential details. So if I wanted to look at home ownership or type of housing, again, estimated home or income, age ranges, you will see age ranges on this one. Some mortgage information. What I like to point out to people are this move distance and time frame. If you want to look at truly people that are new to your community, but not those people that may have moved across town, you could select this move distance, and for that matter, even this time frame. With the move distance, it's where do you want to begin at? What's that threshold point need to be for you? Is it 1 mile? Is it 10 miles? Is it 50 miles? If you didn't want to know about people who may moved from Dallas or Plano, you could certainly select this and say, hey, you know what? My distance where I want to begin it at is 70 miles. And I want to see people that have moved from 2,600 miles. And then we give you this time frame, again, as recent as last week, within the last year. Let's say the last 3 months. And we'll just select your city. Give you that city view. Again, I could be putting in the, what am I doing? I could be putting in, oh, I do need, there it goes. I could be putting in the map-based search tool and doing that radius. I could be using my radius option here. I'm just going to look at your entire community of people who've moved from at least 70 miles away up to 2,600 miles away within the last 3 months. I have a total of 277 that have moved from at least 70 miles to 2,600 miles. Now, home ownership. If I wanted to know, maybe I have a business and it's a lawn care service. I may want to know about these confirmed homeowners or these probable homeowners because I want to reach out to them and let them know that I have this service that I would love to earn their business. Or again, maybe I don't care about this home ownership because I have that little pizzeria down the street and I just want everybody and anybody. Maybe I'm a realtor. Maybe I'm an insurance salesman. I might want to know about this audience. Maybe I sell renter's insurance. I might want to know about this. How many of these 277 are in fact renters? 129 of them. So, and granted, this is across the community. I could make this a little tighter radius if I wanted to by putting in a few zip codes. Again, depends on what I need. Here's what their records are going to look like. And again, we'll give you that same message about the do not call registry. Rarely do I ever see any phone numbers in here. People don't often put in their phone number when they put in that change of address. So let's look at this first record. So I have this address information. This person moved from quite a distance, 1,186 miles away to come into Carrollton. Then I have that neighborhood information. And again, there's that age information based on that census information that we're looking at to provide that. So some great insight in terms of being able to identify these new people in your community and perhaps even reach out to them. Maybe I want to put together a list of these, and I could download these just like we talked about with the businesses. I can select this next to first name, that empty box next to first name, and then advance to my next page. And again, I could do all 6 pages here because I have the ability to download 400. Well, that's not going to surpass my limit, right? So I can just keep going here and be able to grab all of these records. And there's my last page, and then simply select that download option. So if you need to be able to access and use this kind of information because your business depends on consumers walking through your door or calling your number or however you operate your business, you can get out in front of those new people that are in your community. And I can't think of a new business that doesn't want to know about new consumers to their community. So with that said, it is now 11:26. I would like to open up for any questions or any additional insights that people may need before we conclude here in the next 4 minutes. Any questions?
Hello, Bill. This is Lydia.
Hi, Lydia. How are you?
Hi. Doing well. Thank you. Thank you so much for this wealth of information. I don't see any questions at this time, but people are welcome to contact us at the library if they have any questions. Yes, this is and there we have a comment of what an excellent resource this is. Very feature rich, definitely. And
absolutely.
It's so customizable, which I think really makes it exceptional.
Isn't that the truth? Absolutely.
Yes, we're going to share some links in the chat that might be helpful for people. Anyone can come into the library to use reference solutions at either library. You may bring in your library card, or we can create a guest pass with your ID if someone comes in that way. And we're here to help. So please contact us if we can be of assistance. Yes, and you'll receive a recording of this program. We'll also have it available on the web page as soon as possible. Anything else you'd like to add, Bill?
You know, I'm just going to put my email out here. And if anybody would want to reach out to me, I would be certainly happy to assist you as well.
Wonderful.
It's still the new name. I do stumble on that. I put in my old email address. No, wait a minute. I can't do that.
Oh,
There it is. So it's bill.carlson at data hyphen, make sure to get that hyphen in there, bill.carlson at data-axle.com.
wonderful. Thank you so much, Bill. And here I'll enter some links for people. Well, momentarily.
I understand that.
There we go. Well, thank you, Bill, again for this wonderful webinar. And I hope that people will join us for some upcoming ones as well that Bill will be presenting. July 14th, we'll have reference solutions for business expansion with registration starting May 24th. And July 12th will be discover employment opportunities using reference solutions with registration starting 3 weeks prior on June 21st. Be sure to visit Carrollton Public Library online and through social media. And stay well, everyone. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Lydia. I very much appreciate it. Have a terrific rest of your Monday.
Thank you. You too.